Welcome, welcome. You've just entered Correlation Nation. Today we're going to be going over none other than UFC 327. And to be honest, it's a pretty fun card. But first, you know what it is. We're going to go back to last week. We're going to do a quick recap. And let's get into it. All right, last week we had the Moicano and Duncan fight. Let's get into the card. We'll try to make this as quick as possible. We'll just start at the bottom. We'll talk about, I want to right off the rip talk about how the first two fights of the night got both of them wrong. But, in the breakdown we said, look, and I remember even leading right up to the moments right before the fight started. It's just going like, just the over, the fight goes to the card. And that's what happened. We got the split decision and then the majority decision. The second fight, Melissa Gatto fight, that was a really, really weird fight. But, credit to her. She fought through. I don't know if she faked the knockout. It was suspect for sure. But, whatever. Tresean got the win. We didn't actually place that. I don't know if I placed any bets on that. But I said it. I was like, look, don't be surprised if this guy gets the win. Now, there was no way. It was a way closer fight than the lines had it. And I guess you can always find a guy that just outdogs. That's something that we should probably notate. There's always somebody that's going to outdog the other guy. Almost every card you can find it. Then the next fight, we have the Pereira and Cohen. Yeah, not really too surprised about this fight either. We did side with Elise just ever so slightly. She got that knee knockout. It was what it was. It was in the notes. You know what I mean? If you go back and watch it, it was in the notes. And then the Darius Flowers and Lando. We got this one wrong. Boy, we got a lot wrong these past 2 weeks. So we're gonna have to try to correct some things. But this one's really, really funny and ironic because I remember watching tape on Flowers and the Contender Series fight, kind of going back over the slam and thinking like, yeah, that was kind of a one-off. And then he slammed Lando and he hurt him. You could tell he hurt him right away. And I was watching that fight and I was like, oh, here we go again. So credit to Flowers on that. What a good win for him. And then we had the Costa fight. We did get this one right. And I approached this one funny because I basically said Costa round 1. And then I bet just round 2, either fighter, and then Nicole round 3. Because I thought, like, if it ends in the first round, it's going to be Costa, and then either guy could finish the fight in the second. But if it gets to the third round, there's a chance that Stewart could get the finish on Costa. So, it was what it was, but we were on the Costa side. And then we had Thomas Peterson getting the win against Guilherme Pat. Now, this is a funny fight, too, because I feel like Pat could have just torched Peterson. No offense to Peterson, but the striking skill set's not even really close at all. Now, something that I identified during this week is that direct correlation between these guys that are light on their feet, trying to maintain range constantly, and you really need to look at those, the volume numbers on these guys to see if they're a guy that's actually still putting out volume. A guy that I would bring up, or, a couple fighters I'd bring up just to kind of give an example would be David Martinez and, not Karine Silva, but Natalia Silva. These are fighters that, yeah, they do implement a ton of movement, but they also have pretty good volume, so they're not fighters that are just dancing around and not doing anything. I felt like Pat was his worst. He kind of defeated himself in this fight because had he just pulled the trigger, I do feel that he could have probably starched Peterson early. And then I was thinking, like, was it the pressure? But, really the pressure wasn't even really all that crazy. So, yeah, you got to look into it. And so it's something that I've taken note of, and I'll definitely be looking for that in my notes and when I'm watching film and watching fighters, trying to pick up on if these guys that are movement based or implementing it, like, what's that volume really look like, because that's why he was defeated in this fight. Jose Delano, yeah, this dude's the real deal, you know. I mean, he's just a good, smart fighter. And he's just good. Tommy McMillan, and we got that right. Tommy McMillan, we got this one right. Huge favorite. And I think I was even betting that the under, but also the first round knockout on Timmy. And then we had Ethan Ewing. Now this one was surprising, and something that I guess I wasn't even really that aware of all the way up till like right at the end of the week, was that Rafael Esteban was moving up, and he still missed weight, but he moved up a weight class, and I wasn't really aware of that. Now, I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, but it's funny because historically, this guy shows to be kind of a weight bully in the past, you know, fighting in a weight class lower, constantly missing weight, you know, when he's also been somewhat of a kind of grinder, like, you know, clinch you up, control you, stuff like that type of fighter as well. And you know, he goes up a weight class, misses weight again, and just gets absolutely pieced up by Ewing. Now, Ewing's the real deal, no doubt about it, and I knew that, but I honestly thought that Esteban, if he was able to close the distance, that he would be able to basically do what he typically does. Now, in this fight, he wasn't able to do that at all. He wasn't able to really do anything in the clinch. We're getting takedowns. I mean, he was being controlled. Ewing was dictating where the fight was, and he was implementing his boxing and just kind of piecing up Esteban the whole time. Yeah, I just wasn't aware of that. The Yakyayev fight, Brenson Ribeiro. We went with Yakyayev, obviously another huge favorite. I acknowledge that Ribeiro was dangerous. I think he tagged him real early. Yakyayev still got the finish, but you know, you just basically bet the under and round 1, round 2, Yakyayev, whatever. Moving on, Verna Jandarova and Tabitha Ricci. This is one we got wrong. I thought Ricci would be able to maintain distance a little bit better and defend takedowns a little bit better and just do a little bit more in the clinch and what have you. But, you know, it looked decent at first in the third round. It was looking okay. But, yeah, once Jandarova got her takedowns going and really just kind of controlled the fight from there. Moicano versus Duncan. Yeah, this is funny because this is another one we got wrong. I think that's 3 main events wrong in a row. But Moicano, I thought he was probably the better overall fighter. The thing I was more worried about is a 5-round fight. Duncan being a little bit more of a dog and just maybe out dogging Moicano. You see, basically what Trishan Gore did in his fight is what I thought Duncan would do in this one. And that's just not really what happened. But yeah, you're just looking at this fight as like, fight doesn't go, it's violence and whatever anyway. So whatever, let's move on. Let's go on to next week. Let's check out next week's card. We've already wasted close to 10 minutes on this, so let's go ahead and move on. Get out of here. All right, we got UFC 327. So we can get this out of here. Close that. Get that out of here. All right, so I just like basically drug my feet all the way through the week up to this point. I mean, it's Friday, and I'm just making this right now. I have gone through it. I had a lot of fighters to go over this week, unfortunately, which is never fun because then I don't really get to spend as much time going over the actual stylistic matchups. But I changed a few things. We're changing a few things this week because, you know, we've had a bad couple weeks. You know, we were doing really good at the beginning of the year. This week, I basically trying to break down every fighter individually and really try to identify what it is that they do to win fights. And then saying, like, you know, is there a hole in their opponent's skill set that's going to allow that? You know, let's try to see where we're winning these fights. And so we're trying to own in just a little bit more. And let's see what we can do this week. Okay, first fight of the night. We have Charles Radke going against Francisco Parado. Minus 185. Radke is the favorite. The much older fighter size is about the same. The reach, he does have a slight, like about a 3-inch reach advantage. And let's pull up Radke over here in the notes and see what we have. All right, Charles Radke. And hold on. Before we get into this, go ahead. Do yourself a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Do me a favor. Like the video. Let's go. All right. Charles Radke. Fairly light-footed pressure striker. He shows a bit of bounce. Some footwork. Not much. Primarily boxing. He leads with a hook a lot. And then he has pretty good hand speed, I guess. It's decent enough. Solid guard, but doesn't move his head much. Strong transitional grappler, but doesn't have great ability to finish submissions. Can fade later in fight. So all in all, he's like I said, he's pretty decent all in all. I think he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. And let's pull him up over here on paper, because again, we really want to identify like what is he doing to win fights. 5 knockouts, so he's got a chink in the arm right there with the chin. 3 knockout losses, but we'll get into that too. 3 submission wins, no losses. So again, pretty good grappler, and he did get a finish in his last fight. So got knee. That was a knee by Procházka, and that was to the midsection, so it wasn't like a knee to the head or anything like that. I'd have to go back to the Mike Malott fight. I'm not really sure how he got knocked out in that fight. But was knocked out on the regional as well in 2021. So I do think he has like a little bit of, his chin's a little bit of a liability, or just his like will to fight maybe. But all in all, he is a pretty good fighter. He's pretty sound, pretty well-rounded. And then let's look at his opponent. We got Prado on the other side. Let's pull up Prado. Heck, we might have Prado right here, huh? Yeah, he's right below him. Check that out. Alright. Prado. Sorry. Flat-footed pressure striker. He walks forward with a high guard and loose boxing. Has decent kicks. He likes to throw the right side and high kick. More of a brawler than a technical fighter, but he is tough as nails. Takedown defense isn't very good, and while he will use opportunities to get up, he doesn't have great technique. It's just a tough fight for him. I do think because he's a brawler and because he is tough, he definitely does have a puncher's chance in this fight, especially since Radke does have maybe a little bit of a chink in the armor. Let's see up Prado. Let's pull up Prado and see like if he's, I don't know if he's been really getting any finishes. He's just not really beating any UFC level guys, and that's kind of my concern with him. Is I think he has like decent talent. He just doesn't really have a very well refined skill set. I don't know if he's moved camp. He probably should, honestly. No offense, but I think he's tougher than heck. He's not getting finished in any of these fights. Radke probably wins. I think he's the rightful favorite. I guess he could find a finish, but I wouldn't be too certain of anything in this fight, just to be honest with you. But I do think Radke probably wins. But like I said, this could be one where Prado does really just kind of outdog Radke. I don't know, the skill set for me just ain't really there. Honestly, like I think he's good enough to like defend and stand and bang and making an exciting fight, but just technically just not that strong. And we're gonna move on to the next fight of the night. We do have Kevin Gastelum going against Vicente Luque. Another interesting fight. Looks like Kelvin is, I think I said Kevin. Kelvin is the pretty significant favorite here at minus 265. Same age. Luque is going to have a relatively good size advantage, so I'll be interested to watch the weigh-in to see these guys size up. And let's pull up Kelvin real quick. Kelvin. All right. Light-footed striker, mainly boxing. He fights with good pace and pressure. He has an in and out style, solid inside low kick at range, crisp 1-2, strings together combinations in the pocket with good speed and power. He does carry his hands a bit low, sprawls well, but doesn't offer much off of his back. And then let's pull up Luque. All right, Vicente Luque. This guy's able. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's pull up Kelvin. And let's see how he's winning these fights or whatever. Never been knocked out. Been submitted 3 times. And 9-7 to the decision. Sean Brady's really, really tough grappler. I think you can make an argument he even lost the Daniel Rodriguez fight. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch that. Or it was the Chris Curtis fight. It was a Chris Curtis fight. I feel like he lost that fight. Knockout in 2017. Let's see. Yeah. 2017 was his last knockout. Been a while. Quite a while, almost 10 years. So he's mainly winning these fights boxing, right? You know, defending in boxing. Let's see. Defend against Dustin. I'll strike him. I'll strike Curtis. Arguably lost. Lost to Robert Whitaker and Cannonier. I don't know. Let's go to Luque now. I just don't know about that. Let's go to Luque. Sorry. See what we have over here. Light-footed striker, good in and out bounce with solid lateral movement. He has good left jab and snappy kicks at range. Outside leg kick and side kick. Tends to counter with powerful hooks. Left hook especially. Keeps a high guard. Takedown ability with good BJJ. I just think he's the more well-rounded fighter. He's going to have the size advantage. I got to go with Luque. I just don't even know how he's not the favorite in this fight. Bigger, more well-rounded fighter. I guess if Gastelum can keep it standing the whole time, he definitely has a chance to, you know, outstrike and win that fight that way. It's a tough one, but hold on. Let's see how he's been winning and losing here recently. That's kind of the problem, you know. But he did go all the way with Alvarez. Lost by choke to Holland. That ain't gonna happen here. Got an Anaconda choke to Garimbo. That's the other thing. He could submit him for sure. Darsh. Let's go back to this. When was the last time Gastelum was submitted. Possible. Sean Brady. I don't know. I'm going to take Luque. He's a pretty big underdog as is. I'm going to take Luque. I think he can win this fight. You know, you got to worry more about just probably his output and whatever at this point. But, yeah, I don't know. That's what I think. That's what my notes tell me. I think that he's just the better, more well-rounded fighter. I think he's competitive enough, could even win on the feet. You know, if he can keep it at kicking range even more so, you know, being the bigger fighter, the more versatile striker, if he can keep it at range a little bit, you know, he could definitely win a striking matchup on the feet that way. But I think if he can get the fight to the floor, he also has a real advantage there. So we're going to take Luque. I think he wins his fight. And then we're moving on. We got Markel Medeiros going against Chris Padilla. Another little bit of an interesting fight here we have. I don't know. Padilla came in overweight. I'm not sure. 5'10 to 5'9. Padilla's got a pretty significant reach advantage here. Let's pull up Medeiros. Ooh, I did not spell anything. None of that right, bruh. Medeiros. All right. Markel Medeiros is he's a plus athlete. He tends to lead with kicks, you know, so he's going to come at you with more of a kick-heavy attack. Calf kicks primarily. A bit flat-footed, but has decent footwork. He has quick feet. Boxing looks solid. Uses feints and throws from different angles. These are outdated notes, just FYI. Carries hands a bit low. Solid takedown defense. He does have good balance and will work to get up. And he will hand fight against submissions. So he's able to defend and then work. But I feel like, you know, he is the type of guy that, you know, while he will work to get to his feet, like he won't literally just lay there the whole time. I'm not sure how urgent it is. Pull him up over here and see. I feel like he's done pretty well in the UFC so far. Lost one decision in his career. Honestly, hasn't really fought anyone up to this point. I do think this is probably the hardest fight he's ever had. Because Padilla's, in my opinion, just skill set and just the dog in him. He's a skill, like he is a level above most of these guys. Hubbard and Quinones and all these guys. And he is winning by decision. Pull up Padilla. Fairly light-footed striker. He shows decent bounce with solidish footwork. He seems fairly measured, but will look to engage. Fairly effective switch stance fighter. He has a high reaching guard, basic striking skill set. Does his best work in the clinch and wrestling. He's a grimy control and damage type of guy. He fights with good pace. So Medeiros wants to operate clean at range. He does do well at defending somewhat. But he's fighting a guy that is going to be fairly competitive on the feet. He's going to also be able to maintain range a little bit. And like I said, I do think that Medeiros is going to have the slight, like, more technical striking skill set. But as far as, like, overall, like, pace, volume, stuff like that, aggression, willingness to go forward, I think that falls on the Padilla side for sure. And then so this is a super interesting fight as far as that goes. See him weigh in. This is what I want to do. Padilla's definitely got the more experience, and like I feel like he's got more experience against higher level fighters. Yeah, like Bonfim and Herbert and yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I think Medeiros is fine. I just don't know. I just don't know. He's gonna have a hard time maintaining range the whole time. I think the closest comparison would be the Herbert fight. You want a split decision there. It could be tough. I don't know, I have to look at what the over is. I think that, you know, if the... Actually, let's see. Got the rear naked in round 1. I don't think that's going to happen here, though. I think like fight starts round 2 is pretty likely in this fight, just because of Medeiros. You know what I mean? His footwork and stuff like that, and his patience, and you know, wanting to operate at range. I think that even if Padilla can close a range, close the distance, I do think that most likely this fight gets into the second round. And so if it's set at like the overs at like 1.5, you know, I might look at that, but I don't know. I mean, like fight starts round 2 is kind of what I like. I do like Padilla here. I just favor the volume and the grittiness, and you know, he is a guy that's going to kind of like, you know, he's going to come to fight. Medeiros, I think he's good, and I think he could even catch Padilla and even maybe knock him out, because I do think he's a pretty clean striker. I don't know, man. He's one of them guys that, you know what I mean? The fighting spirit, I don't know if it does it for me. Let's move on. Let's go on to the next fight. We got plenty of fights to go over. So we got Tatiana Suarez going against Loopy Godinez. To me, this is a pretty interesting fight. You know, minus 160 to Suarez, plus 135 to Godinez. Suarez is pretty, like, significantly bigger, 3 inches taller, 5-inch reach advantage. Not that she's got some crazy good striking skill set, but, you know, let's get into it. Let's pull it up. Tatiana. All right. Fairly light-footed striker. She shows a bit of bounce with some footwork, but does tend to be pretty plotty. Carries a high guard. Decent backside teep and side kick. She does pump a decent jab. She keeps her head right on the center line and will look to get a takedown. She's a very savvy wrestler, solid control, decent ground and pound, and really nice front choke series. She's a dangerous fighter, you know, all in all. Pull her up over here on Tapology. Won against Amanda Lamoche. She did lose the championship bout. Got pretty well destroyed in that fight, to be honest. Jessica Andrade got a guillotine against her. Got the rear naked on Grosso. That was back in 2018. I don't know if that happens like today. Maybe that's a fight they need to rebook. Maybe that's the fight they should have made. So she's winning a lot of her fights by either decision or submission at this point. You know, is what it looks like. I mean, she has the ground and pound, but that's been a little while back, right? Yeah, so decision, these top level fighters, it looks like more likely decision, right? Like they can defend. Um, let's look at Lupita. Pull her up. All right. Fairly light-footed striker, measured pressure, decent range management. Technical counter boxing style, high guard, kind of low output. Decent kicks at range. She throws front, side, and low. She uses it sparingly. Okay. Sound grappler that scrambles well. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I think the fight goes over most likely in this fight, and I hate to say that because it might seem like I always say that with the women's, but it's not even for that reason because I do think that I actually know that I don't always say that. So even though it may seem like it, I think that in this case, the big question is going to be Godinez has the skill set to win more fights than she actually does. Because she doesn't really use her skill set all the time, and she has questionable IQ, questionable like just like fighting mentality or whatever fighting spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's questionable at times because well, actually, this is what I want to do before I even get too crazy on her. Let's pull up her recent form. Okay, never knocked anyone out. Never been knocked out. She submitted 3 people. Never been submitted. She's 11-5 to decision. Okay. She defends at a very, very high level. The Julia Pilastri fight was a fun one. That was one I don't know. I'm gonna give her a little bit of credit here. I don't remember the Andrade fight very well, but I remember that in the Pilastri fight, boy, she dogged it out. She threw a bunch. She outdogged Pilastri, and Pilastri was trying to outdog her. Man, that was a fun fight. So I do think that overall the striking skill set's going to be a little bit better for Lupita. You just don't know what the volume's going to look like, and that's always scary. And if she's not doing enough damage on the feet, and then Tatiana's getting the grappling going, Lupita can defend, I think, but you just don't know. You just don't know. It's a sketchy, sketchy fight. I do think she can defend. I just don't know what's going to happen in the fight. Um, I'll have to watch the weigh-ins on these and mm, I don't know. It's like just hard to. It's just like there's certain fighters. Sorry, there's certain fighters like this, like Lupita. Man, she's hard. Like you can be right or wrong. I don't like. You just. It doesn't even matter how good you are at predicting. It really just it comes down to like which version of her is gonna show up tonight. The one that's gonna be willing to throw punches. Because like I feel like if she's ready to get it going in the first round and get some work going, use the footwork, but pump some jabs. What you know what I mean? I just don't know. I just don't know that that's really her style. I think the over is the most likely. I'm gonna acknowledge that Lupita could win this fight. I think she does have the skill set to win it, but I just can't trust um, her game plan. And I do think that Tatiana being the bigger fighter, I don't know. I'm gonna go over. I'll side with Tatiana. I'll take the favorite in this, but it's not with a high level of confidence. I could be swayed the other way, depending. I just my issue is it's like Godinez. I'd like to go back and watch her last two fights. I want to watch her most recent fight and see if she put out the same type of volume she did against Palostre. Because if she did in her last fight, in her last two fights, she put out big numbers, then I'm gonna be a lot more likely to side with her in this, because then I just think that I'd be more willing, or like I think I'll be blah, blah, blah. I will believe that she will throw, but again, you just don't know. You just don't freaking know. So we're gonna go Suarez. You do know that she's gonna come forward and she's gonna try to get takedowns, and she's pretty darn good at it. Um, and so Lupita's just gonna have to defend, and I think that we could see a fight where Lupita's spending a lot of time defending and losing. Okay, and let's move on. And that's nothing crazy because she is the underdog here. Sorry, I'm saying that Lupita should be the underdog here. Yeah, slight underdog. It is a close fight. Anyways, moving on. We got Mateusz Gamrot going against Esteban Ribovics. This is an opportunity for Ribovics to step up, get an opportunity to come way up. Size is about the same. Nice little 6-year gap between them, though. So Ribovics is going to be the younger, fresher fighter here. Ooh. Gamrot. Let's pull him up. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know what the heck happened. There. All right, Gamrot. Light-footed striker. He's pretty patient. Has a counter / shoot style. So basically, what he'll do is he'll use pretty good footwork. Maintain range pretty well, and he will either counter or shoot. A lot of times he'll shoot. He's a wrestle heavy fighter, but that's kind of his style. He does have pretty solid boxing, but tends to carry his hands low at times. Chain wrestles and scrambles at a high pace. That's just who he is. Outwork, outpace, outposition, out control, and scramble. That's just kind of how he is. Yeah. Anyhow. Now let's go to. I had him pull up and I left. That's what I needed. All right, let's pull him up over here. 8 TKOs. So he's 8-0 to the knockout, 5-1 to the submission, and 12-3 to decision. And see, he got choked out by Charles Oliveira. Split decision loss to Dan Hooker, and he stood there and banged it out with him. He took some big punches in that fight, but the striking all in all looked okay. Good fight. Yeah, so you know what he's gonna do, right? He's gonna try to grapple you up. Now let's go to his opponent, because we'll probably come back to Gamrot. What I guess what I was curious is, does he have any knockouts at all recently? Like any? Let's see. No. Strikes to Diego Fiera in 21. So I guess he had a couple right off the rip. All these other guys are like really, really good fighters, though. All right. Let's pull up his opponent. Esteban. All right, Esteban Ribovics. Light-footed pressure striker. He has clean, tight boxing. Step in left knee. The power, I'm guessing that's like powerful kicks he throws to all levels. He does have average hand speed, but the guy's very durable. So, I don't know. It's gonna come. Basically, what's gonna come down to is can Ribovics defend the takedowns at all? Because I can see a world where if he can defend the takedowns, the pressure, the volume, and all that of Esteban could definitely wear on Gamrot as the fight goes. I could see that. But he has to be dangerous defending and offering, some kind of submission, attack, anything, you know what I mean? Just be dangerous on the mat, you know what I mean? To work his, and I guess that's the real question is what does the footwork look like? Can he defend the takedowns? And what is he doing off his back? Let's see, let's see what he's doing over here. Dogged it out against Sprinter. Let's see the Terrence McKinney fight. Go back and see that. That happened so quick, though. He's got 5 submissions against 2. Yeah, he's not. I don't know. I mean, I guess if he's got it, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see these guys weigh off. I'll really be curious to see what other people say about Ribovics. Like I said, what's he look like off his back? What's his takedown defense look like? Things like that. Those are super, super important in this fight. Because the thing is Ribovics is a guy that likes to throw. He likes to fight. He likes to engage. And Gamrot is a guy that likes to chain wrestle. And so this puts it in a world where he's going to have to defend Gamrot takedowns. And he's going to have to put damage on Gamrot. That's basically what he has to do in order to win this fight. Now, I do think he can put damage on Gamrot. What I don't know is if he can defend the takedowns. And I think that if he can't defend the takedowns, then Gamrot obviously wins his fight. So, for now, I'm going to ever so slightly stay with Gamrot because I know that he's going to chain wrestle, and I know that Ribovics is going to want to engage. But like I said, if he can defend and put damage on Gamrot, I could see a world where he could win this fight. Probably goes over. This one probably goes over too because Ribovics is a dog. So unless Ribovics knocks out Gamrot, which I guess is possible, yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna go with Gamrot. I'll see what other people. Let's actually see what the lines on this look like. He's a minus 190. Probably should be. Moving on. Man, we got tons of fights to go over here, guys. All right, moving on. We got Kevin Holland going against Randy Brown. This is a fun one. Let's see. Because these guys are big. It's a minus 110, 33 to 35, 6'3 to 6'3. Look at that 81-inch reach by Holland to the 78. So, like I said, they match up very, very well. Obviously, Holland has a slight reach advantage. But, whatever. Now, let's pull up Holland. Kevin Holland. In the right corner, you got Kevin Holland. All right. All right, Kevin Holland. This guy's a fairly light-footed striker. He has decent lateral movement. He's a long fighter that fights behind solid kicks and long punches from range. He throw the front kick, push kick, low kick, jab, and cross. He does have fight-changing power. Now, let's put not too much of an emphasis on this, but he does have it. He can change. He has a type of power that can change a fight quick. His wrestling leaves a lot to be desired, but he is a very sound grappler with submission upside. Okay. Now let's see. What's Rude Boy? Randy Brown. That's his name, Randy Brown. But before we go to Randy Brown, you know the deal. We're going to go over here to Kevin Holland. We're going to pull him up, see what he's done here recently. 2 losses back to back. Got the loss to Mike Malott. Lost to Daniel Rodriguez. A win against Vicente Luque and a win against Gunnar Nelson. Yeah, just, you get a mixed bag of results with this guy. You always do, always will. He's always fighting all over the place, different weight classes. The mentalities, I guess it's hard to really judge exactly what it is that he's trying to do. If he's trying to be a champion or if he's just trying to fight and make money. I mean, obviously he's just fighting and making money, but I don't know. I think people question that because they're like, well, you can maximize the fact that, your skill set and your frame and all these things that you have that other fighters don't. You can maximize that, and that's why people think, maybe there's a chance that he could. I don't know if you're like, oh, he's really going to be a champion, but I'm just saying when you have a frame like he does, and he's got amazing BJJ, he's got crazy power. He's really just got to put it all together. Keep the footwork nice, circle away from the power, don't back straight up, keep it simple. But the mentality is the issue, right? It's the mentality, and then the inability to wrestle and defend. I don't know. Anywho, going against Randy Brown. I was just going over his stuff real quick. Let's pull up old Randy over here. Randy Rude Boy. All right. Randy Brown. This guy's a fairly light-footed striker. He shows good bounce with solid footwork. Measured, but a bit aggressive. So I guess kind of like measured pressure, but I'm not sure. Long, explosive striker. He pumps a nice left jab and fires a nasty right cross. Guard is a bit irresponsible. He does tend to carry him a little bit low, and then fairly active kicking game with both legs, teeps inside, and low kicks. I don't know. They're very, very, very similar fighters. I feel like Rude Boy might, I don't know, to give the actual power advantage. Holland might have that sneakier, just knockout power, but I feel like overall, Randy probably throws harder, regularly. He throws with violent intent more so than Holland. This is a fun fight. I'd have a really, really hard time with this one. Let's pull him up. Let's go back to Randy. See what he's been doing. Oh, come on now, bud. 8-3 to the KO, 5-3 to the submission, and 7-2 to decision. Slept Dalby. I remember that. That was nasty. Knocked out Muslim. This one's so tough. What's the line look like? Even? It's because everyone feels exactly like I do. No one knows who the hell is going to win this fight. Let's go back to this real quick. Let's see. How's he winning his fights lately, and how's he losing lately? Lost to a clinch knee to Bonfim. Won by hook to Dalby. Split decision loss to Battle. Battle came in overweight, I believe, in that one. Knocked out. I just don't know. These guys are confusing me. To Kevin. Back to Kevin. Knocked out twice. One of them was to Stephen Wonderboy when he retired, right? And the lead there with the. So never actually been knocked out. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I could say that you could probably go like Holland, finish no action, maybe. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's tough. This one's so freaking tough. Actually, I have a note on this. Let's see what note I have on this fight, because this one's a tough one to. Let's see. So I was thinking, can Holland capitalize on Brown's aggression, or does he fall behind? So what I'm thinking, see, here's the thing, is Holland's not like this insane counter striker, but I'm thinking that if he can counter him coming in or being somewhat aggressive, if he can catch him, he can knock him out. So if he can take advantage of the aggression of Brown, or as we know, does he fall behind because he's just not doing enough? Especially recently, that's kind of what you get, is like him just not quite doing enough. So we'll go Randy Brown by decision. But it's tough. Super tough fight to call. I think, I mentioned before, the Kevin Holland like finish no action maybe makes sense. But I don't know. I mean, the other side of it is Randy Brown's extremely dangerous. I remember watching him live. Dude, that dude swings hard, bruh. Real hard. So that's what we're going to say for now. We're going to move on. We'll say Randy Brown by decision. We'll move on to the next fight. We got Patrício Pitbull going against Aaron Pico. These are two Bellator guys. Pitbull being a plus 235 underdog. Not sure why. He is in the nine-year elder here. 2 inches shorter. 3.5 inch reach disadvantage. Pull up Pitbull. All right, Pitbull. This guy is a very patient counter striker. He has low volume, fills void with occasional leg kick, has above average speed combined with good power. He can grapple and will work his way to his feet if taken down. I don't know, I mean, my issue with him is his volume, mostly, but pull up on Tapology, because I do feel like he had a fight recently where he looked quite a bit better. And I'm not so sure it was his last fight, because I feel like his last one was Ige. But, might have even been the... Well, maybe it was the Ige fight. The volume looked quite a bit better there. But I felt like Ige was also kind of like letting him lead the dance. So we'll see. I don't know that Pico's going to necessarily do that. Let's see how he's been winning and losing lately. He got the decision. Went to the cards both times in the UFC. So we'll take note of that real quickly. Strikes, knocked out. Cards. Gauging. A lot of decisions in recent past. Lots of them. Tons of them, actually. Got to be a little bit smarter, I guess. Pico. Let's pull him up. Aaron Pico. Flat-footed pressure striker. Seems pretty aggressive. Boxing is okay. High guard, wide power, punches, nasty body shots. Strong wrestler. Control. Mixed with good ground and pound. This type of fighter he is. So you're getting at him. You're getting a guy that's definitely going to engage, come forward, be aggressive. Kind of a glass cannon, I guess. I almost feel like this fight ends early just because of Pico. Let's pull up Pico over here. Been to decision twice, yeah. Yeah, I think the fight just ends early, most likely. But it's a bit risky because, as we were literally just going over Pitbull and he doesn't really have any finishes. Recently at all. So, there's a pause for concern there on that for sure. I just think styles make fights, right? And that Pico's definitely going to come forward. He's going to be aggressive. So I think the fight probably does end early for that reason. Let's go back to Pitbull. Only been knocked out twice. Submitted once. I don't know. I think you kind of got to go with the counter striker because I do feel like he is a good counter striker with good speed and good power. So you got a guy that's going to come forward. I got to go with the underdog here. I got to go with Pitbull. I'm going to go with Pitbull on this one, and we'll see how it turns out. But like I said, ultimately, this is just a fight that probably doesn't see the cards because Pico, honestly, Pitbull said it himself. He said it. He's like, this guy has the power to knock a giant's head off, and I don't remember what he said, knocked out by the slap of a ear or something like that. Yeah, he's a glass cannon. It's exactly what he is, and he's going to come forward, so is what it is. Some fights are like that, you know what I mean? You just don't know. We have another super closely lined fight here, minus 105 odds. Size is pretty close. Nate's the slightly larger fighter. Let's pull up Cub. Cub Swanson. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows decent bounce and footwork. Angles off a bit with decent overall movement, but not very fundamental. So basically what he's doing is like his footwork is like he does these things where like in the pocket he'll angle off a bit, but he's just circling whichever way. He's not really, I don't know. I see it as like it's not bad, like he's pretty effective, but it's not the most fundamental footwork, right? Can effectively switch stances. Seems fairly measured, but doesn't have good range management. A plus minus is fights with hands by his side, so you get the, punches coming from odd angles, but also chin's exposed. Decent jab, fairly actively leg, has a tendency to throw wide lunging punches, and the guy's a bit of a dog. He will bite down and fights with pretty good pace. Seems to be a pretty sound grappler that can be outclassed. And then his opponent, let's see what we have over here. Nate the Train. Actually, you know the deal. I'm trying to get used to doing this, but pull him up over here. He's 42. I think this is a retirement fight. Still looked pretty good in his last fight. 13-3 to the KO. So he is hard to knock out. 5-7 in the sub. So it kind of shows what I was saying, that this is really where he's most vulnerable is to the submission. And then he's 12-4 to decision. I think Shane Burgos is kind of a close, fair kind of comparison as far as fighting style. A little bit similar. Hold on. Yeah, a little bit. Let's see who else. A little bit of a dog. Something that's going to, bite down and throw. Anywho. So how he's getting his wins recently. Let's see. I got the knockout, split loss, unanimous decision. Honestly, I feel like you could argue even that win for Andre Fili. I feel like he won that fight, if I remember right. I was kind of mad that he lost. I thought he won that fight. The leg kick knockout to Martinez. Sorry. Giga's just a much better technical striker. I just feel like Shane Burgos is really the closest kind of comparison. Anyways, let's pull up Nate. Landwehr. All right, fairly light-footed striker. A bit of bounce with some lateral movement, but doesn't really control range. Solid kicks at range. Decent left jab and right cross. More of a brawler. Does his best work in the clinch. In the pocket. Elbows, knees, dirty boxing. Opportunistic grappler. Scrambles well and has solid chokes. Now let's pull him up. Nine and 4 to the KO, 2-1 to the sub, 7-2 to the decision. I feel like he's about to win that Morgan Charrier fight until Charrier was just like, nah, bud. Put it on him there in that last round. Honestly, that What Morgan did there, though, is kind of honestly what Cub does. Honestly, just go forward like that. It really is. It really is. How's he winning his fights? Jamal knocked him out in the first round. Rear naked choke to Austin Lingo. I think he's choking him out. Majority to Onama. I think Cub likes throwing that knee. I don't know. I think it's an absolute dogfight. I'm going to go with Cub on this one, though. I guess it's just more. Nate hasn't had great luck in their UFC recently. I don't know. Onama's definitely. Well, Ludovic Klein. Those are both great wins for him, for real. I don't know. Fireworks for sure. How many times has Nate been to the cards? I guess 9 times. 9-4 the knockout. I don't know. I'm going to go with Cub. I just think that, yeah, it's a dog fight. It really is. It's a super dog fight. I don't know if it's something that you really want to do anything with. I'm going to go with Cub just as an old MMA fan. I remember him in WBC. And I don't think he's like the most technical striker or whatever. He's a good, kind of unique, unorthodox striker, but it's not super, like the fundamentals is not really there. But he is a dog. He does have good power, sneaky power. He'll bite down, he'll go forward, and they both will. So, yeah, it's a tough fight, but he's fought the higher level of competition for a longer amount of time. He's had the greater amount of success. He's shown less, shown to be a lot less susceptible to, the knockouts and stuff like that, which I do think Nate's best path to victory. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a very volatile fight. Dog fight for sure. Probably one of the fights of the night. It'll be a good fun fight. Good fun scrap. And then we're going to go with Cub. Wasn't it like a near pick 'em? Yeah, it's like an even line. Let's go. We got Dominick Reyes going against Johnny Walker. Another really, really close fight. It looks like Johnny Walker is going to be the bigger fighter. He's 2 inches taller and has a pretty significant reach advantage here at about 5.5 inches, right? So that's not right. That is right. About 5.5 inches. I don't know why I instantly thought I was counting that wrong. But anyways, let's pull up Reyes real quick. Pull him up over here. All right. Dominick Reyes, light-footed striker, shows good bounce with solid-ish footwork. Seems pretty measured with decent range management. Carries a decent guard. Relatively high, but can get caught with hands out of position. Has a fairly active lead leg that he likes to throw a low kick with. Solid backside, low, inside, and high kicks. Drops his hands when kicking, and he does this pretty bad. Like, it feels like every time he gets caught, he's trying to throw a kick, and he gets caught. Solid boxing, counters well with power, can, you know, the guy can take a beating, but his chin can also just give out. So, and you don't know what's going to happen, but the guy's definitely got a little old crack in the chin, bud. You know what I mean? A little old crackaroo. Let's pull him up. Uh, 10-4 to the knockout, 2-0 to the submission, and then 3-1 to decision. And it kind of shows the type of fighter he is. Pretty well rounded all in all, especially like relative to the weight class. Pretty good striking skill set. Seems to be able to defend. Grappling pretty well. Obviously never been submitted. But the issue is the chin, right? Yeah, so that's basically what you got. His wins are counters mostly. All right. So we've looked at that. Let's pull up his opponent, Walker. Johnny Walker. Oh, there, Johnny. Hey there, Johnny boy. All right, Johnny Walker is a fairly light-footed striker. Has decent movement, but tends to plant his feet. Doesn't maintain range very well. He has a kick-heavy attack. Pretty dynamic kicker. He's explosive, likes to throw right cross off the low kick. An undisciplined guard, poor head movement. So basically the way I'm going to look at this, skill for skill, just the way it is. Obviously, this is the way you look at it. Johnny Walker has the frame and the ability to probably beat a lot of people, but it's just the way he fights. And I think that in this fight, Dominick's going to be the much cleaner technical striker here. There's just too many things that tell me Dominick probably wins this fight by knockout. Let's look at Johnny Walker recently and see what he's done. All right. This guy is 17-6 to the knockout, 3-1 to the submission, and 2-2 to decision. Got the knockout on Zhang after he tired out. About got knocked out in that fight. Yeah, I'm going to take the under in this fight. I am going to take Reyes to win this fight, but I am going to acknowledge that Walker also has the power, the explosive ability to knock out. Old crumble chin freaking Reyes. Okay. But I'd say this fight probably the under, round 1, round 2, under 1.5. And most likely where the fight ends by KO is also pretty likely. But I guess there's a world where Walker, I guess somebody potentially could snatch up a submission. But yeah, the under. Let's run. Next fight, we have Curtis Blaydes going against Josh Hokit. So they're really, really pushing Hokit up, pushing him up the line here, right? Ranked number 24 going against number 6. It's a pretty close line. Blaydes is getting up there in age now. He's 35. But hey, age is only a number, guys. Okay? Blaydes is going to be probably the much larger fighter here, and that's what it looks like. 3 inches in height, but a pretty significant 6.5-inch reaches here in the reach column. So, let's pull up Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows solid bounce with decent footwork. He does get lost in the pocket. Seems fairly measured. Fundamental boxing at range. High guard, 1-2. Has solidish lead leg. Solidish lead leg. Hold on. It's a lead leg kick. I was going to say like fairly active. Solidish? Bro, I was real too tired when I was... I'd say like fairly active is what I meant to put. And backside low kicks. Will look to shoot for takedown or clinch. A bit of a grinder. Nice ground and pound from the top position. Okay. So what you're going to get in old Blaydes right here is you're going to get a guy that at range, looks pretty decent, whatever. Pretty fundamental, like I said, decent high guard. Keeps his punches pretty straight. Fairly active kicks, pretty simple low kicks. And then the other thing is, it's really, one of his biggest issues in his striking, like the biggest hole is once he enters that pocket. If he chooses, when he enters the pocket, if he makes the decision to strike and not clinch or try to shoot a takedown, he gets lost in the pocket and then he can get countered. That's where he gets countered the most. That's where he's most susceptible to being punched. Because at range, at distance, he's not too bad. He's pretty decent. And then let's pull up his opponent, Hokit. I'll kind of say I think that with Hokit, it's like too much too soon, in my opinion. But nonetheless, we'll pull up Hokit and actually... the deal. We're gonna go back to Blaydes just really quickly and see what's been going on with old Blaydes. Got the split decision win against Kunyaev. KO loss to Aspinall. Hammer fist win to Almeida, and that's the fight that I really wanted to watch because I know Almeida was kind of ragdolling him in that fight all the way up until that last little moment. I have no idea what just happened. So yeah, I kind of do want to see that. Doctor stoppage. So Francis Ngannou knocked him out. I mean, these guys knocking him out are top tier, bud. You know what I mean? Top tier, bud. But anyways, let's not count old Josh Hokit out, you know what I mean? Pull him up. 5-0 to the KO, 3-0 to the submission. Never been in the cards. Pull up Hokit over here. All right, this is what we have on Hokit. Hokit is an athlete, a little bit undersized for the division. Kind of got questions on that. I mean, I know that he is, but we'll see what he can do. Light-footed striker, shows surprisingly good movement. Patient on the feet, has lateral movement. Striking looks okay. He does drop his hands a lot, but moves pretty well. Pumps a decent left jab. Will follow with big overhand right. Decent low kicks. Will throw naked. He's an all-state level wrestler. Well-timed entries. And is able to get to the right position pretty well. Floats and advances. Ground and pound to submission. I don't know. I mean, I guess Hokit could. He could find a win here. I just don't think so, man. I think he's undersized. I think Blaydes is going to be the much bigger fighter. I think that Blaydes... I mean, it's a tough fight. I can't wait. I'll have to watch the weigh-ins and see how they look, see what other people say about it. I don't want to say here, like, I don't think Blaydes is really, like, all that, but honestly, when I watched tape on him most recently, I felt like his striking skill set was probably a lot better than most people give him credit for, just as far as, like, basic fundamental boxing and striking. Yeah, like, the footwork in the pocket's a bit of an issue and all that, but outside of that, like I said, I was pretty impressed with what I seen. And then the actual overall wrestling maybe not as impressive as he might get credit for, but that's probably because of the weight class and where he fights and who he's fighting and what have you. Um, so I do think there's a world where Hokit is the better wrestler here, right? But he's undersized, so that might be an issue right away. I don't know. This one's tough. Let me go back to Tapology real quick. I just don't know if Hokit's doing to Blaydes what Hokit's been doing to literally everyone else he's been fighting. I just don't know if I see that happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Let me go back to the lines. I think Blaydes wins the fight. I just don't. I just don't love this fight. It's a tough fight. Let's see him weigh-ins. Let's go back to Blaydes' Alright, light-footed striker, shows surprisingly good movement, patient on the feet, has lateral movement, striking looks okay, drops his hands a lot but moves pretty well, pumps a decent left jab, will throw with a big powerful overhand right, or will throw a big overhand right, decent low kicks, and he will throw those naked. That's such a tough fight to call. This might be the toughest fight on here. Hokit and Blaydes. Alright. Fairly light-footed striker, shows solid bounce with decent footwork, but he does get lost in the pocket. Seems fairly measured. Fundamental boxing at range. Fairly. Backside kicks. Will look to shoot. I don't know. I just think that the size is going to be, at some point in the fight, it's just going to be too much for Hokit. I don't know that he's going to, like I said, I think that, in the beginning phases of the fight, Hokit might be able to find a little bit of success. But the problem is, in the past, he's able to put these guys away, right? Retirement in the first right to a guy like Denzel Freeman. Right hook to a guy like Mac Gimmon, whoever, you know what I mean? And then Guilherme Uriel, you know what I mean? Like, they got tired out. I have an issue seeing him doing this to a guy like Blaydes, right? I mean, wow, they just were really like, let's just throw you all the way up the rankings. I mean, Freeman just beat who? Nobody. Yeah, and it's such a close line. I'm not going to say Hokit can't win because I do think that he's the better wrestler, right? And that's where this fight's going to play out, mostly. But I think that at range, Blaydes is the slightly more... Well, he is the more technical striker. We'll see who's more effective, but he is the more technical fighter. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to go with Blaydes on this one, and we're just going to ride with that, and then we're going to move on. We got the co-main event. Murzakanov going against Paulo Costa. Let's look at the size. Murzakanov is a minus 210 favorite, 2-year elder. 5'10", so slight. He's kind of small, you know. He's not physically that imposing, right? 71.5-inch reach, though, so he does have a pretty good wingspan for the division. Azamat, let's pull him up. All right, Azamat Murzakanov is a patient, light-footed striker, good in and out footwork. He's explosive, powerful puncher, has decent straight right he throws to the body, tends to feint the left jab, and then throw a nasty overhand left. Did I say? He'll feint the jab and then throw a nasty overhand left. That's how he wins a lot of his fights. You know, somebody said that, I can't even remember what it was. It wasn't that he was a one-trick pony. It was that he was a one destination specialist or whatever. Maybe a little bit of truth to that. Let's pull him up. Here we are. 12-0 to the knockout, 1-0 to the sub, and 3-0 to the decision. Submission was a long time ago. Decision against Dustin Jacoby, which is another pretty elite technical kickboxer. Yeah, so I mean, he's just going to be almost always going to be the more effective striker. Doesn't always have to be a ton of volume because he's just extremely effective. He's very effective. And so he's going to win. You know, he'll outpoint you or he will knock you out at some point if that's the case. Now let's pull up his opponent because, you know, it takes two guys to make a fight. So, let's pull up Costa. All right. Paulo Costa is a fairly light-footed pressure striker. He's aggressive, fights with good pace, but manages distance pretty well. Decent left jab and nasty right body kick at range. Lazy guard. A bit of a brute, though. This guy is bigger and stronger than his opponents. He has some takedown ability. Solid ground and pound. And he advances pretty well. You know, the guy is durable, but he kind of fades late. That's why it's important to go back to Tapology. We'll go to Costa and we'll see what he's been doing lately. How's he been winning his fights? Decisions, I would say. Roman Kopylov, he got a decision win there. Lost a decision against Strickland. Lost a decision against Robert Whittaker. Won a decision to Rockhold. Lost a decision. I don't know. This is a fight that I feel like I'm going to have to think about for a while as far as... I mean, I think it's just tough. It's so tough. Because who's the toughest puncher? What the heck is this? I mean, he got knocked out by Adesanya. So it's possible that he could get knocked out, but I'm a firm believer in it's not usually people with great knockout ability. Like Azamat knocks out a lot of people, so it's not usually their knockout power that knocks people out. It's either their ability to catch them clean, or it's just the opponent not really having the will to fight, or whatever. It's usually something like that, more so than somebody with just big power that knocks somebody out. Now, obviously Azamat is a knockout specialist, but Paulo is a proven durable fighter mostly. So it makes it really hard to say oh yeah, Azamat's gonna knock this guy out. I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible. I'm not saying Costa can't be knocked out, because he has been knocked out, and Azamat definitely has this striking skill set to do that, proven time and time again that he can. But it's hard to really bank on that. Costa's been knocked out once in his career, right? Tons of fights too. Got knocked out by one of the greatest ever on, and the thing is didn't really seem all of himself that night. Another greasy fight. Hard fight call. Because the other side of this is, if Costa is aggressive and he comes across the cage and he just tries to grab a hold of Azamat, which he should be bigger than, and try to put him down on his back, and he looked pretty good in his last fight against Roman. I will say that. Looked pretty good. I don't know. It's so hard. The values probably got to be on the Costas. Well, only plus 165. I'm going to go back to Murzakanov and see if he's fought anyone even similar to this at all. I don't know. I think that's a whole other side of this. Is I don't personally feel like he's really fought anyone like Costa. I do feel like Costa is a much more well-rounded fighter than a lot of these other guys. Banned a decision 3 times. I don't know. I don't know. I think Murzakanov definitely has a path. They both have paths to the victory here. It's just Azamat has got good footwork, in and out style, pretty elusive. And then Costa's not the most defensively sound guy. So yeah, he's durable, but I don't know. We'll go with Azamat. But I think it's a little greasier than a little bit greasier than the line says. ever so slightly. I'm not going to be surprised if Costa is able to close the distance and put Azamat on his back. We'll be looking at a totally different fight. So I'll be thinking about that and how can I approach this fight moving forward. But yeah, but anyways, let's go on. We got the main event: Jiří Procházka going against Carlos Ulberg, and then it's a very close fight as well. We have a slight favorite in Ulberg, or no, sorry, slight favorite in Jiří. Height's about the same, slight reach advantage to Procházka. Let's pull up Procházka. Procházka, this guy, man, he is a fluid switch stance fighter. Shows good bounce / movement with decent footwork. Pretty bladed and can get caught, planted. Fights with measured pressure, and he has plus volume. Very unorthodox and awkward striker. He carries his hands low. He has very natural head movement, creative striker with thudding KO power. His ability to walk through punches makes him a liability, like always will. And so I think that, if he becomes a little bit more defensively sound, then, maybe a little bit less of a liability. But, yeah, the dude is pretty hittable. He's just a warrior. Let's pull up Ulberg. All right, Carlos Ulberg. Light-footed striker, shows good bounce with seemingly good footwork. Fights with measured pressure. Does seem to manage range pretty well. He's a technical kickboxer, clean 1-2, nice backside low kick, and he counters pretty well. It's a super volatile fight just because Jiří, all in all. I think that technically, Ulberg's pretty solid. You know what I mean? And I don't know that Jiří really presents the skill set, when you think of fighting, like, striking, grappling, whatever. I don't know that Jiří really presents the skill set that would threaten Ulberg most when you think like a grappler. Because I do think that a pressure grappler, if they're the kind of guy that can be defensively sound on the feet well enough to close the gap, put him on the floor, something like that, that's going to present an issue to Ulberg because Ulberg is a guy that likes to operate at range, clean striker, and that's just how he operates, right? That's what he relies on to win fights. Now, like I said, I don't know that Jiří necessarily presents those issues or brings them to the table, right? But here's the thing about Jiří. This guy has like the ultimate fighting spirit. I mean, he really does. I'd have a hard time picking against him. He's, in my opinion, he like is the ultimate fighter. He's like the promo child, baby. Like the fighting spirit is really not like anyone else in the UFC. I'm not sitting here saying he's like the most technically skilled fighter or whatever, but because that's definitely not the case. But you gotta love the spirit. You gotta love the will to engage. You gotta love the unorthodox striking, exciting, big power, very humble individual, it seems like. Yeah, there's a ton to like about this dude. And for that reason, I'm going to take him. I just love the fighting spirit. I do think that Ulberg could catch him. The cleaner striker, definitely. He's definitely going to probably have some really good moments and probably have some moments where it looks like he knocks him out. But I think that the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Jiří, right? The longer it goes, the more the dog's going to come out. And, this dude is constant pressure, just kind of walk forward pressure. Ulberg is 13-1. Only loss ever was a knockout, and that was to Kennedy and Jechuku or whatever. That was because he kind of tired himself out, and I see that kind of a similar situation where, Yeah, he's not fought anyone like Yuri, bro. Like, you know, when... Nope. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I'm not going to be like, you know, obviously I'm going to, for the sake of the video, I'm going to take Yuri. But obviously, like this fight, there's just no way this goes. There's no way a Yuri fight goes yard, right? It's not going to the card. So fight ends early. And we'll be going over this some more. Good luck to everyone. Again, do yourself a favor, subscribe to the channel. Do me a favor, drop a like. Come on, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, almost 2 hours, 1 hour and 40 minutes. Come on, baby, let's go. Good luck to everyone. Catch you all next time. Enjoy the fights.